A humid night settles over the Pacific. The year is 1945. The world has burned for 6 long years and Japan stands on the edge of ruin. Cities lie in ashes. Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya, all flattened by waves of fire. Amid the smoldering ruins, a once proud empire now faces starvation, invasion, and collapse. In the imperial palace in Tokyo, Emperor Hirohito sits in silence, his face pale under the soft glow of a paper lantern. Outside, cicadas scream in the darkness, and the faint rumble of distant bombs trembles through the air. Advisors and generals argue in low, desperate voices, surrender or fight to the death. For some, surrender is unthinkable. For others, survival is the only duty left. Far across the ocean, in Potsdam, Germany, 3 men sit around a polished wooden table: Harry S. Truman, Winston Churchill, and Joseph Stalin. The war in Europe has ended, but the Pacific War rages on. Truman, the new American president, carries a secret so immense it could alter the course of history. In his breast pocket, a coded message. The baby is born successfully. The Manhattan Project had succeeded. The first atomic bomb has been tested in New Mexico as desert, a light brighter than the sun. At the Potsdam Conference, the Allies draft their final message to Japan, the Potsdam Declaration. Its words are simple but cold: surrender unconditionally or face prompt and utter destruction. The message is sent. In Tokyo, it lands on the table of Prime Minister Kentaro Suzuki. The cabinet reads it in silence. The generals whisper, "What is utter destruction?" Empty words. Suzuki declares to the press, "Makusatsu. We will ignore it, treat it with silent contempt." Meanwhile, on the island of Tinian, deep within the Marianas, mechanics and scientists work in secrecy under floodlights. A silver aircraft stands ready, the Enola Gay, a B-29 superfortress with polished aluminum skin that gleams under the Pacific moon. Inside hangars, technicians fit a bomb unlike any other. A weapon born from theory, forged in secrecy, and baptized in fear. Its name, Little Boy. In the American Command Center, General Leslie Groves and Colonel Paul Tibbets review orders. Their faces are calm, but their eyes reveal the weight of what is to come. On a nearby desk lies a photograph of a Japanese city, Hiroshima, chosen for its size, its untouched condition, its symbolic value. Far away in the New Mexico desert, the men who built this weapon, Oppenheimer, Fermi, Bohr, Groves, Lawrence, wrestle with sleepless nights. The war had given them purpose, but what comes next fills them with dread. Oppenheimer had quoted the ancient words from the Bhagavad Gita. "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. The world stands still, balanced on the edge of an invisible line, peace or annihilation." And as the summer heat thickens over Hiroshima, as children chase dragonflies in the quiet morning light, the engines on Tinian begin to roar. Night blankets the Pacific in a haze of stars. On Tinian Island, the airfield hums with quiet intensity. Mechanics move like shadows beneath floodlights, tightening bolts, checking circuits, loading the bomb. Each man works in silence. No laughter, no chatter, only the metallic echo of wrenches and the low murmur of engines warming up. At 2:30 a.m., August 6, 1945, Colonel Paul Tibbets climbs into the cockpit of the Enola Gay, his flight suit crisp, his face expressionless. He writes one last note in his logbook: target, Hiroshima. The bomb Little Boy rests in the bomb bay below, suspended by steel braces, armed but silent. Painted on its sleek casing, in white chalk, are the words, "Handle with care." The crew, 12 men, gather in the dim interior of the aircraft. Their young faces are illuminated by red instrument lights. Captain Theodore Van Kirk, the navigator, unfolds maps with trembling hands. Major Thomas Farabee, the bombardier, checks the Norden bomb site, its lenses glinting faintly. Someone mutters a prayer, another checks his watch. Tibbets turns to his men. "Let's make it count," he says quietly. The 4 propellers roar to life, cutting through the tropical air. The Enola Gay rolls down the runway, the ground shaking as its massive frame lifts into the night. The sky swallows the plane whole, a silver ghost bound for destiny. Hours pass. The Pacific Ocean stretches endlessly beneath them, black and silent. In the bomb bay, the engineers periodically check the circuits. One wrong spark could end them all midair. Over the radio, faint chatter filters through, weather reports from reconnaissance planes ahead. Code words drift through static. Cloud cover less than 3/10. Target visible. At 2:45 a.m., the weather plane over Hiroshima radios back. Target clear. The Enola Gay adjusts course. Below, the world begins to glow, faint pinpricks of light where fishermen burn lamps along the coast. Dawn creeps across the horizon, brushing the sea in shades of gold and rose. Inside the cabin, sweat drips down necks. The men barely speak. The air smells of oil and nervous breath. At 7:09 a.m., they spot land, the coast of Japan. The mountains rise gently into view, cloaked in mist. Hiroshima lies ahead, quiet and unsuspecting, waking to another ordinary morning. In the city below, the day begins like any other. Tram conductors prepare their routes. Mothers hang laundry in narrow alleys. Children hurry to school, their wooden clogs clattering on stone. A little girl named Sadako Sasaki ties a red ribbon in her hair before leaving home. Her mother waves from the doorway. At 8:09 a.m., Tibbets gives the order. Bomb bay doors open. A low mechanical rumble vibrates through the aircraft. Firabi peers through the sight, aligning crosshairs over the Ioi Bridge, the heart of Hiroshima. A bead of sweat runs down his cheek. He whispers, "Steady." At 8 hours 15 minutes and 17 seconds a.m., the bomb drops. A smooth, graceful fall, a small silver cylinder spinning slowly against the blue. The Enola Gay banks sharply. The crew wears dark goggles. For 43 seconds the world holds its breath. Then, light. A flash so blinding it erases color, form, and shadow. The bomb detonates 1,900 feet above the city. A sphere of fire expands faster than thought, a sun born from human hands. Below, Hiroshima ceases to exist. 8:15 a.m., August 6, 1945. For a fraction of a second, the world is pure white. No sound, no form, only light. Then comes the wind. A shockwave rips through Hiroshima, flattening everything within miles. Houses explode outward like paper. Streetcars lift into the air. Roof tiles melt, walls vanish, and bodies are hurled like leaves in a storm. At the hypocenter, temperatures reach 40 degrees Celsius, hotter than the surface of the sun. People standing on bridges, walking in open streets, or riding bicycles simply vanish, leaving behind only shadows burned into concrete. In an instant, 80,000 souls are gone. In the air above, the Enola Gay rocks violently from the blast wave. The crew turns to look. Behind them rises a mushroom cloud, vast and terrible, churning with fire, dust, and ash. It climbs higher, twisting into the morning sky, pink, gray, and orange at its base, turning pure white at its crown. For the men aboard, it's both awe and horror. "Dear God," whispers Sergeant Wyatt Dusenbury. "What have we done?" Below, Hiroshima burns. The city, once vibrant, filled with markets and gardens and laughter, becomes a single, living flame. The river glows red from reflected fire. Thousands leap into the water, their skin blistered and burning, desperate to escape the heat. But the water boils. A soldier near the Ioi Bridge, his uniform in tatters, stumbles through the smoke calling for his unit. There's no answer. The ground beneath him ripples with heat. His shadow stretches, then dissolves. At the Red Cross Hospital, Dr. Terufumi Sasaki works barefoot, moving among the wounded. Every hallway is filled, people without eyes, without skin, without voices. The smell of burned flesh and ash fills the air. Bandages run out in minutes. There are no medicines left. A mother, hair singed to her scalp, carries her child through the rubble, her kimono aflame. She whispers softly, "Gamini, Gamini, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." By the riverbank, hundreds lie motionless, their skin hanging like silk from their arms. The wind shifts. The first black rain begins to fall, thick, oily drops, radioactive soot from the cloud above. Survivors lift their faces to the rain, believing it will cool them. They drink from it, unaware it carries poison that will haunt them for decades. The silence that follows is unbearable. A city of 350,000 people becomes a field of whispers. Hours later, on the Enola Gay, Tibbets receives the first confirmation. Mission accomplished. He nods, his face unreadable. The crew avoids his eyes. As they turn back toward Tinian, the men sit in silence. The bomb bay is empty, but its absence weighs more than its presence ever did. Over Japan, the sun sets red. The smoke from Hiroshima stretches across the sky like a scar. In Tokyo, radio operators intercept fragmented messages, static, confusion, reports of the city wiped from the map. The generals dismiss it as exaggeration. A single bomb cannot do this, they say. But soon, reconnaissance planes confirm it. Hiroshima no longer exists. The emperor's advisors gather again. Outside, the cicadas still scream. Inside, silence. August 7, 1945. A gray dawn rises over Hiroshima. The fire has quieted, but the smoke still climbs into the sky, carrying the smell of death. The city, once vibrant and alive, now lies silent, reduced to a wasteland of twisted steel and ashes. Among the ruins, survivors begin to move. They stumble through the rubble, barefoot and bleeding, calling out for family who will never answer. A boy of 10 pulls at a half-collapsed beam, whispering, "Okay, a dash sand dot dot okay, a dash sand dot dot." But the voice beneath the wood has already gone still. At the edge of the city, near the river, the injured gather in silence. Their skin hangs from their bodies like torn cloth. Their lips are cracked, their throats burned. They raise trembling hands toward passing soldiers, begging not for rescue, but for water. Many die with the word mizu, water, on their lips. Inside the Imperial Palace in Tokyo, reports trickle in. The Army Ministry receives word from reconnaissance flights. Hiroshima has been obliterated, not by firebombs, but by something new, something unthinkable, a weapon of a single flash. General Anami Korekaka, the Minister of War, slams his fist against the table. "It cannot be true," he growls. No weapon can destroy an entire city, but the evidence is undeniable. Photographs arrive showing the city as a gray smear of ash. Even the most loyal officers tremble. Still, the Supreme War Council refuses surrender. They cling to the belief that Japan can negotiate a better peace through Moscow, that the Soviet Union might mediate terms. The emperor listens, eyes downcast. He says nothing. But in the quiet, one can almost hear his breath, heavy, human, and full of sorrow. In Washington, D.C., President Harry S. Truman receives the message from Tinian. Results excellent beyond expectation. He stares at the paper for a long time. Then, to his aides, he says only, "This is the greatest thing in history." Outside, crowds cheer as the news spreads. Atomic bomb hits Japan. Few understand what it truly means. Newspapers describe it as a powerful new weapon. No one imagines a city turned to vapor. Back in Hiroshima, Dr. Sasaki and his surviving nurses work endlessly, their hands raw and trembling. No one knows what radiation is, but the symptoms begin to appear. Men who seemed uninjured suddenly collapse. Their gums bleed, hair falls out in clumps. Purple spots bloom beneath the skin. At night, the river glows faintly under the embers. Hundreds of bodies drift downstream. Men, women, soldiers, children, silent, nameless. Only the sound of the water remains. A teenage girl, her face burned, kneels beside her dying brother. She takes a white paper crane from her pocket, folds it carefully, and places it in his hand. "Next time," she whispers, "we'll fly away together." In the north, Soviet troops begin to move. Their tanks cross the border into Manchuria. Stalin has declared war on Japan. In a single night, another storm begins. Japan is surrounded. But still, the warlords refuse to bow. They plan for one last glorious battle, a defense of the homeland that will drown the islands in blood. And so, across the Pacific, another bomb begins its journey. Its name, Fat Man. August 9, 1945, 3 days after Hiroshima. Dark clouds hang over Kakura, Japan's industrial city. Below, smoke from earlier bombings shrouds the streets, obscuring the target. High above, a B-29 named Boxcar circles restlessly, searching for visibility. Inside, Major Charles Sweeney grips the controls, sweat running down his temples. The bomb in his bay is heavier, deadlier, Fat Man, a plutonium implosion weapon, far more powerful than Little Boy. Fuel is running low. They have only one chance. Sweeney checks the weather reports again. "Target obscured," comes the voice through the radio. He curses softly. There's no time left. They turn toward the secondary target, Nagasaki. 10:58 a.m. The clouds break for a moment. A single hole in the sky reveals the valley city below. Factories, houses, and churches spread along the riverbanks. It is a city of workers, families, and children walking to school. Sweeney gives the order, "Bombs away." At 11:02 a.m., the bomb drops, whistling through the air for 43 seconds before detonating 1,650 feet above the Urakami Valley. Another blinding flash. Another sun is born. A shockwave ripples through Nagasaki with unimaginable force. The Urakami Cathedral, once the largest Christian church in Asia, collapses in an instant, its massive dome disintegrating into dust. Tens of thousands vanish in the first heartbeat. Others are crushed, burned, or buried alive beneath collapsing homes. From the Mitsubishi shipyards to the Nagasaki Medical College, everything is consumed. The blast carves the hillsides into raw red earth. Wooden houses ignite like dry leaves. Rivers boil. A rain of glass and fire sweeps through the valley. In the mountains beyond the city, A young nurse named Tsuyo Katahoka lies thrown from her post, dazed but alive. She stands, her ears ringing, and looks toward the city. There is no city, only flame. She begins to walk downhill, passing the dead and dying, their clothes burned away, their eyes white and blind from the flash. She reaches what was once the hospital. Half of it has vanished. The surviving doctors move among the wounded, but there are no bandages, no water, no medicine, only screams. The ground trembles from aftershocks of heat. A mother crawls across the earth, clutching a baby who no longer breathes. A man kneels in the ruins of his house, holding a charred family photo, whispering, "Minagomin nasai." Everyone ... I'm sorry. Above the city, the mushroom cloud rises again, black, red, and white, towering 40,000 feet into the air. From the air, the crew of Boxcar watches in stunned silence. No one speaks. They turn for home. That night, Tokyo finally understands. 2 cities gone, 2 sons born from human hands. The cabinet meets again, their faces pale, hollow, sleepless. Foreign Minister Shigenori Togo pleads with the generals. If we do not end it now, there will be no Japan left to save. But General Anami remains unmoved. We must fight, he says. We must preserve the Kakutai, the spirit of the nation. In the midst of their arguments, a voice cuts through the tension, quiet, calm, unshakable. Emperor Hirohito. The time has come to bear the unbearable. Outside the palace walls, Tokyo's night sky glows with distant fires. Inside, a centuries-old silence breaks. Japan's divine emperor has spoken, and for the first time, it is not a call to war. August 10, 1945. The war that began with thunder now drifts toward its quiet, inevitable end. Japan is in ruins, its cities ashes, its armies shattered, its people starving. Yet within the marble halls of the imperial palace, the struggle is not over. 6 men sit in a darkened chamber, the Supreme War Council, their faces drawn and gray. Outside, the distant rumble of American bombers echoes like a heartbeat. They argue into the night, surrender or annihilation. Foreign Minister Togo bows deeply before the emperor. Your Majesty, he pleads, our people cannot endure another Hiroshima. The Soviets have invaded Manchuria. If we delay, Japan will vanish. But General Anami slams his fist against the table. If we surrender unconditionally, he growls, our nation will be enslaved, our emperor humiliated. We must fight to the end. 100 million shattered jewels. The room falls silent. All eyes turn toward Emperor Hirohito, the living god of Japan, now pale and trembling in his white uniform. He speaks softly. We must endure the unendurable and bear the unbearable. If we continue the war, the Japanese nation will be destroyed. The words hang in the air like a blade. No one dares breathe. In Washington, President Truman receives the Japanese message. They will surrender, but only if the emperor's position is preserved. The Americans debate furiously. Some demand total humiliation. Others, led by Secretary of War Henry Stimson, argue for pragmatism. Finally, the reply is sent. The emperor may remain, subject to the authority of the supreme commander of the Allied powers. For the first time in 1,000 years, Japan bows to foreign command. August 14, 1945, the emperor prepares to address his people. No Japanese ruler has ever spoken directly to the nation. His voice, the voice of a living deity, will soon be heard by millions for the first and only time. In a small recording room deep within the palace, engineers set up microphones and lacquer discs. The air is heavy with incense and fear. The emperor reads from a handwritten script, his words trembling but clear. After pondering deeply the general trends of the world and the actual conditions obtaining in our empire today, we have decided to effect a settlement of the present situation. We must endure the unendurable and suffer what is insufferable. The recording lasts only a few minutes. When he finishes, the room is silent. The discs are hidden in a safe to be broadcast the next day. But not everyone will allow peace. That night, as the emperor sleeps, a group of young officers loyal to the army launch a coup d'état, the Kairyu incident. Their goal: seize the palace, destroy the surrender recording, and force the emperor to continue the war. Under the cover of darkness, tanks roll through Tokyo's empty streets. Soldiers surround the palace gates. Inside, the rebels storm the broadcast room, searching frantically for the record. They find the staff terrified but loyal, the discs hidden beneath a pile of blankets. The conspirators search every corridor, but time slips away. At dawn, loyalist troops surround them. Their leader, Major Kenji Hatanaka, realizing the coup has failed, rides his motorcycle to the Imperial Plaza. He bows toward the palace and shoots himself in the head. In his pocket is a note. I have done this for my country. As the morning sun rises, Tokyo is eerily quiet. The emperor's message, his voice, is ready to be played. For the first time in history, Japan will hear the sound of surrender. August 15, 1945. The sky over Tokyo is washed in pale light. The streets are silent, not from calm, but from exhaustion. The city is broken, its people ghosts moving among ruins. Yet everywhere, from the smallest village to the burned heart of Hiroshima, radios begin to hum to life. At noon, a faint crackle breaks the static. Then the voice of the emperor. Soft, distant, formal, wrapped in ancient court language few fully understand, but every Japanese heart feels the weight. To our good and loyal subjects. The war situation has developed not necessarily to Japan's advantage. We have resolved to pave the way for a great peace for all generations to come. Double quotes. We must endure the unendurable and bear the unbearable. His words drift through shattered homes, over hospitals, into burned fields where farmers stop working and weep. Children look up to their mothers, confused. Does that mean we lost? Their mothers nod. Tears fall silently onto the dirt floors. In the countryside, soldiers returning from the front kneel before makeshift shrines. Some press their foreheads to the earth. Others stare at the horizon, faces blank, unable to believe the voice they've just heard. A few refuse to accept it. One young officer walks into the forest, sword in hand. He kneels before a cedar tree and whispers, "Tenno Heika Banza." Then silence. The empire's final act of defiance fades into the wind. Across the Pacific, the news sweeps through America like a storm. In Times Square, hundreds of thousands pour into the streets. Flags wave, confetti rains, sailors kiss nurses beneath a shower of paper and tears. For a moment, joy drowns the memory of death. Men who had fought across oceans in Normandy, Iwo Jima, Okinawa, raise glasses to the sky. President Truman steps to the podium in Washington, his voice steady but weary. This is the day we have been waiting for since Pearl Harbor. This is the day the fascists are finished. He pauses, looks down, and adds quietly, "May God have mercy on those who died for freedom." In Hiroshima, the survivors hear the news with hollow eyes. Victory and defeat are meaningless words in a city where entire families have vanished. A doctor who has not slept for days steps outside the ruins of the hospital and looks up at the pale August sky. He whispers, "So it's over." Around him, the city still smokes. Birds have returned, circling the blackened trees. Back in Tokyo, Emperor Hirohito sits in the quiet of his private chamber. He has laid down the sword of the divine war, the first emperor in 2 millennia to surrender. Outside his window, cicadas scream, and a warm breeze drifts through the palace gardens. He removes his white gloves, sets them gently on the table, and closes his eyes. For a moment, the war is truly over. But the peace that follows will not come easily. September 2nd, 1945. Tokyo Bay. The morning is still, the sea like glass beneath a gray sky. Anchored among a vast fleet of Allied warships lies the USS Missouri, her decks bristling with flags. The air smells of oil and salt and history. Aboard, men stand in silence. Generals, admirals, and envoys who have carried the weight of the world through 6 terrible years. Cameras click softly. Pencils scratch in notebooks. The war that began with fire will now end with ink. At 9:04 a.m., Foreign Minister Mamoru Shigemitsu, leaning on a cane and his artificial leg, steps forward to sign the instrument of surrender on behalf of Japan. His hand trembles as he writes. Across from him, General Douglas MacArthur, tall and impassive in khaki, watches with a gaze of iron and restraint. When it is done, MacArthur speaks. "It is my earnest hope that from this solemn occasion a better world shall emerge. One based upon faith and understanding among nations." No applause, only the cry of gulls circling above. The war is over. But the shadow of it stretches far beyond the bay. That same week, American troops begin landing across Japan. Their first steps are careful, rifles slung low, uncertain what to expect from a people they had been told would never surrender. Yet instead of resistance, they find silence, bowing, hunger. Tokyo is a skeleton of a city. The imperial palace stands untouched amid a sea of rubble. Children in rags watch the soldiers pass, some shyly offering paper cranes in trembling hands. In Hiroshima and Nagasaki, occupation troops walk through hell on earth. The smell of death still lingers. Ruins stretch for miles, foundations melted into the earth. The survivors, hibakusha, live in makeshift huts, their faces scarred, their bodies racked with sickness. No one understands. Doctors note strange symptoms: fevers, bleeding gums, falling hair. They call it atomic disease. A young girl, Sadako Sasaki, plays quietly near the ruins of her school. She is 2 years old, small, smiling. No one knows that 10 years later, she will die of leukemia, one of the first children claimed by the invisible fire that still burns inside her. At the Tokyo War Crimes Tribunal, justice, or something like it, begins. In a courtroom built from the ashes, 28 men are tried for crimes against humanity: invasions, massacres, slave labor, medical experiments. Hideki Tojo, once Japan's prime minister, stands stiff and emotionless as his verdict is read: death by hanging. Others bow deeply, accepting their fate. Yet even here the lines blur. Some Americans question whether those who dropped the bombs should also stand accused. The tribunal does not ask that question. History for now belongs to the victors. Outside the courtroom, a new Japan begins to take shape. MacArthur oversees sweeping reforms: demilitarization, democratization, women's suffrage, a new constitution. For the first time, Japan becomes a nation not of empire but of people. Factories reopen, children return to school. The black market thrives, then stabilizes. American soldiers hand out chocolate bars and powdered milk to starving children who, just months ago, had been taught to hate them. A strange peace settles, uneasy, fragile, but real. And through it all, the memory of the bomb remains, a reminder of what humanity can do when it loses its soul, and what it must become to find it again. The ashes of Hiroshima have cooled, but the world is no longer the same. Across the Pacific, in laboratories and offices, men who once built the bomb begin to question what they have unleashed. Los Alamos, once a fortress of creation, now feels like a haunted cathedral, its scientists wandering like priests of a new, terrible faith. J. Robert Oppenheimer stares into the desert night of New Mexico. He remembers the first flash at Trinity, the color of creation and annihilation intertwined. His words echo in the stillness. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. He is not alone in his doubts. Edward Teller pushes forward, dreaming of a weapon even greater, the hydrogen bomb. Others beg restraint, warning that one Hiroshima was already too many. But the genie is out of the bottle, and nations begin to reach for it. In Washington, President Harry S. Truman walks the corridors of power with the weight of history on his shoulders. He believes the bomb saved lives, that it ended the bloodiest war mankind had ever known. Yet telegrams arrive from Japan daily, reports of radiation sickness, of children coughing blood, of women giving birth to ghosts. The victory begins to taste like ash. In Moscow, Joseph Stalin orders his scientists to begin their own atomic program. In London, Winston Churchill warns that an iron curtain has descended across the continent. The world divides not by borders but by fear. The mushroom cloud becomes a symbol, not of victory but of warning. A new kind of war has begun, fought not with armies on battlefields but with shadows, secrets, and spies. The nuclear age is born from the ruins of Hiroshima. Back in Japan, beneath the rising sun of reconstruction, survivors gather by the river each August 6th. They light lanterns and let them drift across the water, each a soul, each a memory. Children whisper wishes for peace into the flickering light. The current carries them away, glowing softly against the dark. For the first time in history, humanity possesses the power to destroy itself. The question that remains, whispered in every capital, in every lab, in every silent heart, is whether it ever will. Decades pass. The ruins of Hiroshima are rebuilt, but the memory of that morning never fades. Where once stood a city of ash, glass towers rise in silence beside the Peace Memorial Park. Cherry blossoms bloom where shadows were once burned into stone. But beneath the beauty, the ghosts remain. Every year, on August 6th, at 8:15 a.m., the city stops. School bells ring once. Heads bow. And across the river, the dome, the only structure left standing near the epicenter, watches over the ceremony like a scar that refuses to heal. Among the crowds, white cranes flutter in the breeze. Thousands of them, folded from paper by children who never knew the war, but who carry its echo in their hands. Some are for Sadako Sasaki, who died 10 years after the blast, believing that if she folded 1,000 cranes, she might live. Her story becomes the story of a generation, the will to hope, even when the world itself seems broken. In America, the debate never ends. Historians argue, veterans remember. Presidents reflect. Some say the bomb ended the war and saved millions. Others say it opened a door mankind should never have touched. Oppenheimer's eyes, hollow and haunted in his final interviews, seem to ask the same question the world still cannot answer. Did we destroy Hiroshima or ourselves? Through the decades, the weapons grow stronger, faster, colder. Cuban missiles, Berlin standoffs, silent submarines gliding through black seas. The fire that began in 1945 still burns, hidden beneath treaties and diplomacy, waiting for a spark. And yet, amid all this, Hiroshima endures, not as a wound, but as a warning. Not as vengeance, but as remembrance. In 1985, an American pilot, one of those who flew over Hiroshima, visits the city for the first time. He stands at the memorial, reading the names etched in stone. An old Japanese man bows beside him. They do not speak. They do not need to. The silence between them says everything. As the camera pulls back, the city glows beneath the evening sky, calm, alive, rebuilt from the ashes. Lanterns float once more on the river, their light flickering gently in the current. The same river that once ran black with death now carries 1,000 tiny suns, reflections of what was lost and what was learned. History does not end in fire, it endures in memory. And the world, forever changed, must decide what to do with its own creation.